Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast, the place where we're helping you optimize looking and feeling your best. If you enjoy the show, be sure to share it with a friend, like, and subscribe. And let's get into today's podcast. So today we are talking the seasons to fat loss, or what I like to call the simple seasons to fat loss. It's a protocol that we have in our program. If you follow these 3 phases, we have a 3-phase system. You will absolutely set yourself up for success if you actually follow through with it. So the 3 phases are a protocol that are put in place specifically so that you can lose body fat, you can gain muscle, and not only that, you can keep your results. So the weight that you lose, the body recomposition that happens, building muscle and losing body fat, your body will change going through this process. But maybe you're somebody who's gone through a 6-week diet, or you've done a 30-day challenge or a 21-day challenge, or you've done keto, or you've done any of these things and you've gotten results, but it was extremely difficult for you to keep the results. You either gained partially, some of the weight back, you gained it all back, or you gained it all back plus some. This is going to be perfect for you. This is why we implement this 3-step system, this 3-phase system in our program. And I'm just going to give it to you guys. So I'm going to lay it out for you. You can choose what stage you are particularly at. We'll kind of determine where you start, but I always highly recommend people start from stage 1, but it's not always necessarily the case. There are some nuances and some one-off scenarios where somebody might be at a different stage, and that's totally fine. But generally speaking, most people are going to be able to start from phase 1, transition into phase 2, and then go into phase 3 here. So phase 1 is called our preseason phase. In phase 1, the goal is not to immediately start focusing on losing weight. Right? Our goal is really never to lose weight. It's to lose body fat and build muscle and body recomposition. So if your goal is strictly just to lose weight, this protocol is not going to work for you. And I highly recommend you shift your focus a little bit more to, if your goal is health and longevity, focus on building muscle and losing body fat, which might mean that your body weight may not change at all. You may gain weight, but you might be in a healthier position. You might have less body fat on your body. You might have more muscle mass by the time you go through the end of this protocol. It's going to be an entirely different version of you, regardless of what the scale says. So that's first and foremost. In phase 1, and all these phases, for a matter of fact, you have to be able to ditch the scale right away. If you're so hyper focused on the scale, you're going to stop. You're not going to be able to complete all these phases. You're going to become discouraged, and you're going to be hiding all the wins that are glaring at you right in front of your face because you're so hyper focused on the scale. So phase 1, the main focus of phase 1 is priming your metabolism, getting yourself in a really good position to make sure that your body is eating enough food, enough fuel, so that you can set the foundation to set yourself up to transition successfully into a phase 2 where all the fun stuff happens, right? Where we think on the surface, like that's where the results happen. But phase 1 is about setting yourself up for success, lay the foundation. How do we do that? We make sure we're eating enough food, enough fuel. So we have a calorie target. We need to establish a maintenance. How do we do that? We consume enough food, high quality food, right? So this is where we would change out or transition. If you've traditionally been used to eating processed foods, in phase 1, we are focused on consuming single ingredient, high quality foods, at least for 80% of our total daily consumption, food consumption. So that means transitioning some things out. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Phase 1 duration on average is about 4 to 8 weeks, and it depends on the individual. This allows us to make sure we're consuming enough food, primes our metabolism, right? Gets our metabolism moving faster because we're consuming enough food, enough quality food, in combination with introducing some workouts as well. Those two things and focused on building muscle are going to make sure that our metabolism is in a really fast position so that we can be successful in our fat loss phase. So first and foremost, make sure you're eating enough calories. Of those calories, we're going to have a protein target, right? Anywhere from 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, or goal body weight. It's a good way to go. And make sure that we're hitting that target within 10 grams. That should be the goal. Now, if you're way off of that target, a gradual increase is going to be highly recommended. You don't have to go from, let's say your established target is 150 grams, and right now you find out that you're only consuming like 70, half of that. You don't have to jump straight up to that. A lot of times that'll cause some bloating, some digestional issues. So a gradual increase, knowing that you're working your way up to 150 for this hypothetical scenario, from 70 up to 150, you don't have to make that jump overnight. Okay, so a gradual progression. So calorie target, making sure we're hitting our protein targets. Fiber is going to be huge. Females, 20 to 25 grams of fiber per day is going to be recommended at minimum. Males, anywhere from 25 to 30 plus grams, and even upwards, right? So is going to be recommended for men. So for males, sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. A step count, so total daily energy expenditure. These are going to be things that we are monitoring, and we're measuring how much energy we're expending into the day. Aside from just exercise. Exercise is a very small portion of the day. So making sure we have an adequate step count, at least 7.5 to 8,000 steps and higher should be accomplished in order to move and graduate into a phase 2. So if right now you're currently walking 2,000 steps, that's fine. You just know you have to get to a bare minimum of at least 7.5 to 8,000 steps per day on your weekly average to be able to successfully transition into phase 2. Okay, so if your steps are really low, that's okay. It takes people, again, on average 4 to 8 weeks to gradually build these numbers up to hit kind of these prerequisites so that you can move and transition into a successful phase 2. Now, again, every nuance is going to be different. It's going to be very individualized, but these are some of the benchmarks that we have our clients hit in phase 1 so that they can be really successful transitioning into a phase 2, right? The reason why we have phase 1 and we don't just jump right into a phase 2, I'm jumping ahead, is caloric deficit, right? That's where we're going to be burning body fat, building muscle, etc. The reason we don't jump straight into that is because what your diet history or what you've been doing up until this point will determine how long you can spend in an in-season phase 2, and will determine how successful you will be in a phase 2 or fat loss phase. Okay, so really, really important you hit these prerequisites in a phase 1 preseason: calorie target, protein target, fiber target, hydration, making sure you're consuming enough water and salt and electrolytes, sodium, etc., potassium, etc. And you have a total daily energy expenditure or a step count, and sleep's the other one, right? So it's all these fundamentals that we have on our checklist. We have a moving into phase 2 checklist that I can share with you guys. Just reach out to me if you'd like to see that. It lays everything out for you. But again, really what you're doing in phase 1, the goal isn't to just jump in and lose body fat and lose weight. We have to prep ourselves so that we can do that and do it successfully and do it for a long duration, right? So when you come into this phase, this 3-step phase system, we're making sure that you are able to lose body fat for as long as you want, or you can extend your time horizon much longer than if you were to just jump straight into a phase 2 or in season, which is what most people do. If they're doing a 6-week challenge, a 21-day challenge, whatever, something that's going to be really quick, they're not looking past or beyond setting themselves up for success to be able to keep this weight off, to be able to keep these results, right? And so that's where our 3-step phase comes in to play. So once you've hit the prerequisites in your preseason phase 1, now it's time. You've set yourself up for success. You've done your homework. You've made sure you're consuming enough food. You're hitting your calorie targets, your protein targets, your fiber targets. You're adequately hydrating. You're doing all the benchmarks that are required moving into a phase 2, and you've checked off everything. Now it's time to go into phase 2, where now we're consuming enough food. We can strategically put ourselves into a caloric deficit, usually on average anywhere from 15 to 20% of what your current intake is. Now, everybody's going to be different, but usually that's enough to jumpstart the fat loss phase to be able to get the body recomposition process moving in the right direction. And this is the phase, this is the transition part where everybody really likes, if they've done a great job setting themselves up for success by adhering to phase 1, phase 2 is really fun, is really simple, and is where a lot of the magic, quote unquote, magic happens. However, we have to understand that putting ourselves in a caloric deficit, losing body fat, we're sending a signal to our body that is saying, hey, we are performing a high level of stress here, whether we're conscious of it or not. Although fun on the surface, because this is our goal and our intention, it is a form of stress to our body. So we have to remember that. So the time in an in-season or phase 2 is very limited. Think about it as your favorite sports team. Your favorite sports team isn't going to play an entire year in season. Let's use football, for example. They're going to be very beat up, bang up. They're trying to prolong their longevity throughout the season, stay injury free, right? And we know that's not always the case. So the actual season is very short. So anywhere on average from 8 to 12, sometimes 16 and beyond weeks. But there is an exit strategy where we have a postseason phase 3. Okay, so it depends on the individual, how much time they're willing to spend, and how much time they've put in phase 1 will ultimately determine how long somebody can stay in phase 2. If somebody just skips the steps of phase 1, their time lived in an in-season or phase 2 is going to be very short. However, if you graduate from phase 1, you hit all the prerequisites, you do and hammer all the fundamentals, you've now set yourself a solid foundation to put yourself in a caloric deficit, to transition into an in-season phase 2. Now you can lose body fat. You've primed your metabolism. Your body's responding really well. You're in a healthy position to add a form of stress, like we talked about, to your body because your body's already in a healthy, primed state to be able to do so. If you're super stressed, you're on very low sleep, you're not paying attention to the quality of food you're consuming, you're not paying attention to hydration, you're not working out, you're not doing any of the fundamentals, and then you just jump into an in-season phase 2, you're adding stress on top of stress. And so you can imagine how long and how your body's going to respond. It's going to be very short-lived. You're going to be very frustrated. Your body's not going to respond like how you anticipate it to. And so for those reasons, you have to go back to a phase 1, adhere to the fundamentals, make a smooth transition into phase 2. Now we can add intentional stress by putting ourselves in a caloric deficit. We can lose body fat. We can focus on progressively overloading in our strength training. And now we can really put ourselves in a position to recomposition our body, to lose body fat, to build muscle, to build a healthier state, a healthier version of us by prioritizing single ingredient, high quality foods. And now our body's thriving. We're not just no longer surviving. Okay, so that's where all the fun stuff's going to happen in phase 2. Now, once we've either A, achieved our goal and where we wanted to go, or B, we've got to a position where our body is sending us signals where unfortunately energy starts to suffer a little bit, maybe sleep, we start to become a little bit more irritable during sleep, and we're still attacking all the fundamentals. Some of these signs are very common at the tail end of an in-season phase 2 because you've been in a long season. And so we've been in a long state of stress. We've applied a certain specific stimulus to our body by putting it in a caloric deficit. And now it's time to transition out and keep our results. This is phase 3, postseason. And in this phase, we do something called a reverse diet. And in the reverse diet, we take ourselves from the lower amount of calories and we gradually and strategically build our calories back up to now establish a new maintenance. And this is post-season phase 3. AKA a reverse diet. We're gradually increasing our calories 50 to 100 calories every week or biweekly, and we're monitoring the individual as they're going through the process. This is the most important diet. The diet after the diet is the most important. Postseason phase 3. This is why you can look back in the past, maybe why you've gotten results, but you weren't able to keep them. It's because you skipped what we like to call our postseason phase 3. Super, super important. As you're gradually increasing your calories, you're allowing your metabolism to be primed again and have enough fuel and reboost energy stores so that you can capitalize on that and go back to a new baseline or homeostasis. It's going to be different than when you started. It might be close. It might be in the ballpark. Remember in phase 1, we established our maintenance calories before we went into phase 2. In postseason phase 3, as you're gradually boosting your calories over an extended time horizon, usually, generally speaking, about the same duration, if not longer, than you were in season phase 2 is what we recommend for phase 3. So if you were in season for 12 weeks in a phase 2, phase 3 is also going to be at least 12 weeks. So you can gradually boost your calories over that long enough time horizon, which allows you to gradually boost your metabolism so that we're not spiking our calories, going from a calorie deficit directly into a surplus, and then our body stores body fat, right? So that's what we want to try to avoid. That's hence the reason of super important to gradually progress in a postseason phase 3 and incrementally, week in, week out, adding 50 to 100 calories to your total and doing it in that gradual fashion will allow your body to reproduce and allow its energy stores to come back gradually. You're going to start to feel better. You're going to feel more alive. You're going to have higher energy. You're going to notice that if sleep was lacking a little bit from being into an in-season for too long, you're going to notice you sleep a little bit better. You're increasing your amount of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Your body's going to start to feel good again. So if you've been in a position where you're like, man, I'm struggling a little bit, from being in an in season for too long. Yes, I was able to lose body fat. Yes, I was able to produce some muscle. But you have to have an exit strategy, hence our postseason phase 3. We go through a reverse diet. Now we can eventually establish a new maintenance. And now from here, we highly recommend staying in, almost transitioning to like a quote unquote fourth stage, which would be like an off season. But phase 3 postseason, where you're gradually increasing your calories to establish a new maintenance. How do you know once you're at your new maintenance? You start to feel really amazing. Body composition wise, you feel really good. You have high energy levels, and your biofeedback, sleep, stress levels, how you're feeling emotionally, all those things come back and you're feeling really amazing. Those are great indicators that you have established a new maintenance. And so you can figure out what that is. It's going to be different because now you have less body fat, you have more muscle mass on your body. So your energy demands for that new version of you are going to be different. And so it takes some time to figure out what that number is. And then once you found it, you can stay in the ballpark. And we recommend staying there as long as possible. You can always run through the seasons again. You can go back to a preseason phase 1, then transition into an in-season phase 2, and then finally do another postseason phase 3. But we strongly suggest spending the majority of, if we're looking at the entire year, an annual calendar, out of those 12 months, the majority of the time should be spent in postseason / off season, where you're just at your maintenance or even a surplus. Because remember, in season phase 2 is extremely stressful to our body. So we have to recognize that. We have to remember that although that's where a lot of the major results happen, it's how well and you adhere to a phase 3 and perform the prerequisites, set the foundation, and perform the fundamental habits in a preseason phase 1 will ultimately determine how long you can stay in an in-season phase 2. So really important to cycle through. Once you understand those 3 phases, you will know exactly how to strategically not only get the results that you're looking for by losing body fat, increasing your muscle mass, improving your overall health and longevity, but you'll be able to do so and keep your results in a sustainable way that'll allow you to literally increase your longevity and ability to do this. So real quick recap. Phase 1 is setting the foundation. It's not to crush it. It's not to lose a ton of weight here. It's to set yourself up for success to help determine how well your body fat and muscle building will go in the next phase. So that requires you to hit fundamental habits like establishing a new caloric intake, establishing a protein target, a fiber target, making sure you're adequately staying hydrated, making sure that your sleep is at least 7 to 8 hours. Like all these fundamental things. Again, if you guys want the checklist that we have for our phase 1, moving into phase 2 requirements checklist, just reach out to us, put a comment on here and we'll send it out to you. And I promise once you check off all those things, you're ready to go. You can have a super, super successful in season because you've laid the groundwork to be able to do so. You've basically earned that. And so now you've gotten a position where now it's time to transition into in season or our fat loss phase, our body recomposition phase. That's where we're strategically putting ourselves into a caloric deficit. So we're pulling our calories down. Anywhere from 15 to 20%, depending on the individual, sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's a general broad, guideline of what we like to do with our clients. And usually that's enough to elicit the stimulus to start losing body fat while still maintaining or even in some cases building muscle in the process. We stay in there for anywhere from 8 to 12, sometimes 16 weeks, depending on the individual. And then we have an exit strategy, which is postseason phase 3, where we gradually increase our calories, taking our clients through reverse diets. Again, remember, add 50 to about 150 calories every week or biweekly until you've established some good biofeedback with yourself. Your energy levels are restored. You're not irritable when you sleep. You feel good emotionally. Your stressors are under control, both internal and external stresses, and you're able to manage that extremely well. Like those are all great signs to prove to yourself, like, okay, I've established a new maintenance and now I can keep my results. I didn't just hit the eject button and go back to my old habits that I had before I even started the 3-phase process. No, you strategically performed a phase 3 postseason to establish what is now determined your new maintenance, your new fuel intake, the amount of calories that you need to sustain your current physique and body and health. And now you've established that, and that's in postseason phase 3. And so now, if you wanted to, you could run through preseason, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. You can go through that cycle again, but allow yourself enough time, almost like in an off season at maintenance, or even in a surplus. If you're really strategically focused on building muscle, you could double down on that. You can eat more calories than your maintenance, which we recommend going through stages of that as well. And then you can run through the phases again. So we recommend 2 to maybe 3 times max in a year to go through those total cycles. Don't be running these as fast as you possibly can and doing it 6 and 7 times throughout the year. That just proves that you're skipping and you're cutting corners, and you're not allowing your body enough time to recover and repair after performing something like an in-season phase 2 that's highly stressful to the body. So yes, it does yield awesome and amazing results, assuming you adhered to phase 1, but phase 2 is a form of stress, which is why we have a recovery phase in postseason phase 3, and establish a new maintenance so that you can hang out there for a while before transitioning back into a phase 1 again. So anytime you perform that 3-step system, you have now figured out the key and the unlock. There's a very strategic reason as to why we put it into place with people who come and join our program. It's reliable, it's consistent, it sets you up for success, longevity, to not only lose body fat and build muscle, but to keep your results, most importantly. So no more doing fad diets, getting results, losing them, and then no longer being able to sustain your results that you work so hard for, and you go back to where you started, or in some cases worse, you put even more weight on because you didn't have something like a postseason phase 3 that gradually built you up to establish a new maintenance. So hopefully that helps. If you guys have any questions, let us know. We're always looking forward to creating new content and material for you guys. If you found this helpful, if you haven't implemented this, or you have a friend or a family member that you feel like could benefit from it, we encourage you guys to share it with them. That's all we ask, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.